All right. So I think we can get things started. Welcome, everybody. Really appreciate everyone taking the time to be here with us today. If this is your first time attending one of our summits, this is our third annual Customer Success Summit. And the primary goal of why we do these summits at the end of the day is to bring thought leaders, practitioners, operators all under one roof to be able to share insights and learnings on how to tackle some of the challenges that we face within the industry today. So one thing that what we try to do to give back to the community is to make this really accessible. So that's one of the reasons why it is virtual and why it is free of charge. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Nik Mijic. I'm one of the co-founders of Matik.io. And at a high level, what we do is we work with companies like Okta, Asana, Glassdoor, specifically with our customer success and sales teams to help them create client-facing collateral like pitch decks, business reviews, renewal decks, ROI frameworks, all within PowerPoint, Google Slides, or even email. And how we do this is we've built a product that will allow you to easily connect to any data source. So whether that is a CRM, whether that's a CSP, whether that's a data warehouse, to not just pull in the data into these narratives, but ultimately also leverage AI and rule-based logic to drive the story and the narrative to help you have better conversations with your customers. So before we dive in, I do want to give a big shout out and a thank you to all of the speakers that are participating in today's summit. We honestly could not do this without you. You guys are on the front lines. You guys are taking the time out of your busy schedules to be here with us today and share and give back to the community. So I really do appreciate everyone taking the time to participate. If you miss a session, don't worry. We will be sending out a recording of all the sessions after the summit concludes, as long as you're registered. And so without further ado, this year's theme is digital customer success. And so you may ask, like, hey, how do we choose this year's theme? As we've been talking to our customers, as we've been talking to leaders within the space, I think over the last 24 months, even 4 years, so the landscape has changed so much. The way that we serve our customers is constantly evolving, right? Whether it was the pandemic, or work from home, macroeconomic environment, we are constantly having to adapt to our environment to be able to serve the needs of our customers. And digital has been a huge talking point within the community, whether that is one-to-many programs, whether that is automation, whether that's using data to better segment your customers and drive. All of those have been components of a digital strategy. And it's not a nice to have, it's a need to have now. It's become an essential part of that strategy. And so really excited to kick off the summit. I'm joined here by the one and only Nik Mehta, the CEO of Gainsight. He's done a lot for our community. Both him and Gainsight have built this category, and they've done a tremendous job at guiding over the past, I don't even know now, 10 years plus within this journey. So Nik, really appreciate you being here and taking the time to be here with us today.
Nick, it's so great to be here. I love the theme of the event because it is the theme for every company, scaling and digital, which we'll talk about. And yeah, you built an amazing business yourself. Like we have a lot of clients in common, Okta being one of them that love Matik. So congrats.
Thank you. Thank you. So to kick things off, we are doing an icebreaker for all of the speakers at this year's summit. And the icebreaker is give us what is your biggest digital addiction? So it could be something at work. It could be something outside of work. I'll start. I have been I listen to Spotify every single day, and I've really enjoyed the AI. I mean, AI is everywhere. I've really enjoyed the AI playlists. I'm originally from Croatia, Bosnia, and I'm trying to listen to more Croatian music, but sometimes I don't know what artists to follow. And I feel like the AI playlists have done a really good job at introducing me to music within from Croatia and Bosnia that I can listen to. So I would love to pass it over to you.
Yeah, totally. It's of course, like everyone uses Spotify, obsessed with music, love the AI playlist. Though I will say, My day list one day recently said early 1900s music, and it was basically like Guns N' Roses and stuff. So AI thought that Guns N' Roses from the early 1900s. I'm like,
Huh.
what are you doing?
Okay.
But I am, the other one, like everyone, but definitely I'm deep in the rabbit hole, is
Yep.
obsessive ChatGPT user, but not like in some like, oh yeah, I do like email writing or performance reviews, but like everything. Like what's my keynote for Pulse going to be? Using it as a pretty good therapist, to be totally honest. It's like I have a real therapist, but I always tell her AI is coming for her. So yeah, I live ChatGPT. My kids tease me. They're like, Dad, are you on ChatGPT right now? It's kind of like as if I were on TikTok, but I'm just on ChatGPT. I'm probably using
So
ChatGPT right now. So
do you use the mobile or do you mostly desktop?
mobile, desktop app, web,
Okay.
voice. It's actually the other day. If you were at the Equinox gym in Palo Alto about 3 weeks ago, you would have seen some middle-aged Indian dude talking to his phone, asking it to tell me more about Bayesian reasoning and the different approaches to understanding quantum mechanics. So
Wow.
that's me.
Wow, wow, wow. That's awesome. Well, maybe to kind of dive into to the topic here. Obviously, digital CS is a hot topic right now. But how do you define what digital customer success is, and why do you think it's become such a big talking point within our community?
Yeah, so let's start with the why first and then the what. The why is pretty straightforward, right? It's a combination of companies are needing to scale more efficiently, largely because like SaaS is more mature and companies have to they have to get more profitable, but they also want to keep growing, right? And what that means for many folks watching is you don't have more CSMs or salespeople. You're trying to just crank up the ratios, and that's not sustainable. That's number one. Number two is clients expect more, right, than ever because they have so many choices. They're under a lot of pressure, right? And many of you can feel this. So it's like this combo of I have less time and our clients want more time. And then finally, a lot of clients are tired of the in person or live synchronous video meeting. They don't want to jump on another call. They want to do things on their own. And that's where I think what you all do so well, because the kind of concept of like a virtual executive business review, that type of thing. And then the concept of like digital engagement through self-service, portals, email, in-app. So let's get to the what then. Digital is not a segment, it's a strategy. And it's a lot of people are like, oh yeah, we do digital for our small customers. We do human for our large customers. In fact, I used to say that years ago. I draw a pyramid and digital be on the bottom. It's not right. Digital is a strategy. You may have a segment that's digital only, but it's a strategy across all your communication vehicles. It's about taking the work that can be turned into digital and
Yep.
AI, and then leaving the humans for the higher value work. And digital is not just about email. It's about all the ways to reach a customer. It is email, it's in-app, it's like automated content creation, it's using agents, which we can talk more about, and automating stuff that way. It's in-app guides, it's kind of the portal, the community, the training, all together. And at Gainsight, we're super passionate about all this. So we just bought
Yep.
SkillJar, a training software company. We have a leading community solution, in-app, and because we think digital really spans all the ways your clients engage with you.
Yeah, I think it's definitely. I mean, I'm also a culprit of that. I always thought when I first heard the word digital, I always thought long tail, right? Like,
Right.
hey, you're going to use digital through programmatic means to be able to touch the long tail of your customer base. But I feel like the companies that I've talked to that do it extremely well are the ones that, to your point, look at it from a strategic perspective. And a lot of the times, like what you do for maybe an SMB account or like the long tail account, a version of that is applicable to mid-market, to strat, to enterprise, and there's a lot of leverage there. Actually, one of the things that I've seen a lot is people start with more of the strategic side, right, or the enterprise side, and work their way down. Because if I do something up here, probably a watered down version could be applicable to the long tail, right? So I love that. I love that aspect of it.
That's cool. I like that.
Um, so I guess digital customer success is just to your point, is like no longer optional for CS organizations.
Mm,
So how can
no.
leaders make it a competitive advantage rather than just a necessity?
Yeah, it's really interesting because I do think that like the necessity is, oh, let's email the customer or whatever, right? In-app guides. And the competitive advantage is being really thoughtful about what you're trying to do and making sure it's a complement to what the humans are doing. So we have somebody that we work with, one of our customers, and she has this great thing where she's like, don't use digital for the things it's not good at. It's not great at relationship building, right? Like that's not today, at least, right?
Uh,
Maybe one day. And so don't worry about that. Just say like, what are my specific goals? And a very reasonable goal is using digital to drive adoption, right? And so then it's like, what are my adoption goals? What are my KPIs? What programs can I run? How do I A/B test them? Things like that, right? And then how do I make that multi-channel? So it's email, it's an app, it's content creation all together. So I think one piece of competitive advantage is really defining your goals really clearly. Another is making it multi-channel, so it's not just email, right? Something more sophisticated. A third is hyper personalization. So how do you get to the point where that digital is really based on who that customer is versus like a spammy one to many? That is what a lot of people do.
So like I'd love to maybe kind of double click on what you said about the goals, about like, hey, defining the goal up front
Yeah.
and having that be um you mentioned, I believe, adoption, right? What are some of the
Mhm.
other goals that you're seeing people really focus on when it comes to the digital lens?
Yeah. Another one that I think is pretty reasonable to think about and fits very much with what Matic does is I to be more effective with my large customers, I need more human time there. And
Yeah.
therefore I want to be able to offload a lot of the low value work. And so a thing that you could look at is time savings or increased ratios or
Right.
whatever way you want to measure it. And obviously some of that is how much time does it take to create a presentation or send out information about the new release or send out information about best practices on adoption or send that onboarding email, right? Those kinds of things are time saving that you can reinvest in the things that are real high value. So yeah, you can think about it as adoption, you can think about it risk management, you can think about it as efficiency or all of the above. Just to pick a simple example, we have a client where they were telling me that it's an amazing story where they have it's like $1 billion revenue business. And at the time, I think it's even more now, a few billion revenue. And their CFO said, "Look, no new hire." And so, some might be familiar for some people on the call, right, on the meeting. And so they told me they're like, "We 4x'd our uh, number of customers and revenue with zero incremental hiring." Now, the way they did that, well, they had to. So it was part of it. Necessity is the mother of invention. But then they just took a lot of activities that they were able to automate and kept the humans for the high value stuff, right? So I think you're all running this experiment right now. You don't have more headcount for the most part, right? And so one way to measure it is, can I deliver similar results even though I don't have more people? That's like a big part of it.
Totally. Yeah, I think another thing that I've observed too is that early on when we were having these conversations, even last year, is I think people kind of stayed away from digital because they were worried about their jobs. And I think it's also tied to
Yeah,
AI as well.
that's it. Totally.
And I like how you phrase it. I think it's like, hey, we're just freeing up time for you to do the things that you do extremely well, which is again building relationship, being the voice of the customer, things that are much, much harder to replicate via a digital motion or digital touch point. So I think that's spot on.
Love it.
Yeah, so I think the other question then that I have is like, how can CS leaders really harness that power of data and automation without losing that human intuition and the empathy that drives exceptional customer relationships, right? I think that's always the sticking point when it comes to some of these automations.
Yeah, that's really interesting because yeah, you don't if it's spammy, it's going to
Yep.
hurt your relationship, right? So a lot of it is sort of right message, right time, right channel, which is kind of classic marketing in general, right? But what that practically means is it's like, okay, how am I personalizing this communication, whether it's an in-app communication or email? So let me give you an example of that. So, a lot of our clients now, when the user logs into their app, the client's app, right, whatever that app is, some of them use our technology. It's called Gainsight PX. It's like an in-app kind of guide analytics kind of thing, right? There's a lot of different versions of that out there. We have a good one. And the first time somebody logs in, it'll ask a profile. So if you're using the Gainsight app, it'll say, what type of user are you, right? Are you the person managing Gainsight? Are the end user the CSM? Are you the executive, right? And then what you can do is personalize that content. So that's number one is you can say, hey, who are they? Now you could infer that from titles, or you could ask that explicitly, or you can do both. There's a lot of different ways to do that. But number two then is how do you surprise and delight them? Right. So, like an example, I think that our team does really cool was if you select that you're the admin. So now we know you're the admin of Gainsight, the ops person, whatever, right? And now you take our certification. So, like a lot of companies, we have a certification on how to manage Gainsight. Now you take it. Well, automatically you're going to get like a t-shirt. Now that sounds silly, like a t-shirt. Who cares a t-shirt, right? But actually, it's like more the feeling, the vibe. There's a book called Power of Moments by Chip and Dan Heath. Really great book if you're in customer experience in general. And it's just about how the delightful moments are everything. So it's not the $10 t-shirt, it's not the $10. It's just the fact that we did it at the right time to the right person at the right moment, celebrated their success, etc. And so we actually some cool virtuous loop stories where then those people that got that t-shirt then post that on LinkedIn and say, I'm excited about my
Wow,
certification, that type
that's
of thing,
good.
right? And
Yeah.
so I think that this idea that remember, it's a human being, you talked about this up front. It's a human being first at the client. They're a human being. And so
Mm,
remember that a human being does not want to be spammed. They want to be understood. They want to be celebrated. Design your digital campaigns around human beings.
I love that. Yeah. Like the personalization aspect, we're seeing this too with our customers where, I think one of the things that we try to teach and one of the things that we're really trying to hone in on is, don't just share data for the sake of sharing data, right? Like you have to be able to personalize that data to a particular persona. And so, like, if I have a renewal conversation and I'm going and generating an ROI deck to showcase as, hey, here's
Yeah.
the value of our product. Well, that the way you speak about value may differ if I'm talking to the admin. It may differ if
Yep.
I'm talking to the economic buyer. It may differ if I'm talking to the manager or the end user. And so I think being able to craft the narrative and hyper personalize the content that you're showing is really, really key. So I love how you touched upon that. So, I mean, we're definitely going to touch upon this. So let's talk about it now. We're kind of leading into it. AI is everywhere. It's not, and I think a lot of people were testing it last year. I think now, if you are not implementing AI within your product, if you're not using it on a day-to-day basis, you are going to be left behind, right? And so, what excites you most about what AI can do for this digital strategy within customer success?
Yeah, I love that. I mean, I love what you said, Nick. One of the LinkedIn posts I'm writing right now is in the future, there's not going to be like an AI product. It's
Yeah.
just like you won't have a product without AI. Like that's just it's ridiculous, right? In fact, I was just talking to a customer who we were talking about how so many business systems, including like where Gainsight was, historically, are just so old school. It's like enter data, run a report, write a manual email. Like that stuff is so legacy. And we need to really reinvent what we're doing. And so to me, in the future, digital AI are just one thing. There's not like two separate things. It's just like one thing. Now, a framework that we use to think about what are the pieces of that thing. So we believe that AI and B2B is going to kind of break into three buckets of kind of value to customers. Bucket one is AI as an assistant. Bucket
Yep.
two, I'll describe each of these. Bucket two is AI as an analyst, and bucket three is AI as an agent. So let's go through each of those. So AI as an assistant. This is the one most of us are familiar with because AI is everywhere, right? So it's like imagine every employee in your company, every CSM, every salesperson had their own executive assistant. What would
Yep.
that assistant do? Well, it would take notes for you. It would summarize meetings. It would assign action items, right? And great news is, that's built in now. Most, Gainsight has it built into everything we do. I'm sure Matik has features in this area, Zoom, Teams, everything. It's there everywhere, right? And that's just like in the background, making things better and getting to the point where in the future, there's no data entry. There's, it's our
Yep.
assistant doing everything.
That would be the dream. No data
Well,
entry.
and it's not far away. I mean, honestly, it's
Uh,
it's it's here now. I mean, you just see the magical things happening in AI in general. They're here. We just need to adjust. They say that famous quote, "The future is already here. It's just not evenly distributed," and it's just never been more true. Phase two, analyst. AI is an analyst. So this is about, imagine a world where every CSM, every salesperson, every leader, every frontline manager, every CEO, every CCO has their own analyst.
yeah.
Today, if you're lucky, you have some ops person, analyst, data person, data science person. There's not infinite numbers of those people,
Yeah.
and they're not available 24/7. But imagine it was, so just two examples of what we've done. We bought a company called Staircase.ai, by far the hottest thing we've ever had. And it basically connects to all your email system, Gmail, Outlook, et cetera, your video meeting platforms like Zoom, Teams, et cetera, your support systems, runs everything through LLMs and analyzes to look for all kinds of intelligence about your customers. Automated risk, which customers are disengaged, where are we not multi-threaded, which customers are we spending too much time with, what are the
Yep.
real sources of churn. These are things that you would typically have an analyst go do, and even then you're not sure if you'd trust the data, right? Another example, we built in reporting through prompt that's in beta right now inside our core Gainsight products. You just, instead of going through Report Wizard, you just type in a
Yep.
question. And so whether it's Gainsight stuff or Matik stuff, this idea of AI as an analyst is here and now, not futuristic, whether
Yep.
it's from us or others. And then the thing that's there, but also coming very soon, is AI as an agent. And this is the idea that most of this concept of agentic workflow, where AI can take action, not just give you information, right? Everything I've talked about so far is information. How do you have it take action? And if you want to understand what this looks like in real life, go watch some of the demos of OpenAI's Operator technology, or there's similar things like it, where Operator lets you go in and say, I want to go to Hawaii, a month from now. Can you look at all the options, think about when vacations are, book flights, find the cheapest option and book me a hotel? And it's going to literally browse the web on your behalf with the little AI browser. It's really cool to watch. It's not perfect, very rough right now, but that's the kind of thing that's possible. So in the B2B world, today, what happens? Well, today, you design your presentation template in Matic, and I've seen it's really cool what you guys do. You design an adoption campaign in something called Journey Orchestrator in Gainsight. You got to think about what fields and rules and what to map to what, and what do people want to see and which audience. It takes a lot of cognitive time from an ops person.
Yep.
And even then, they might not get it right. But one of the things we're working on is imagine 100% automated adoption agent, where it's looking at all your data about usage, determining which customers have good usage or not without any rules, creating like segments of kind of customers to send campaigns to, writing hyper-personalized emails, including a link to a presentation, let's say in Matic, including a video, creating an interactive experience where the customer clicks on that link so they can ask questions. This is not like science fiction. It's here now. In fact, we're going to be demoing something at our Pulse conference in May. And so I think that's the third phase, is AI as an agent. So AI as an assistant, here now, everyone's using it, whether you know it or not. AI as an analyst, it's right there. It's Staircase. I'm sure Matic's doing stuff. And then AI as an agent coming very soon.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that. I think we look at it from a lens of two, not three, but two. It's like one, AI for information purposes, which I think are the first two categories that you mentioned, right? Which is like, hey, just tell me I have a question, just tell me, and I need some information. And then I think
exactly
second is action, right? Like that's the agentic side, which is, rather than me going and clicking on a bunch of buttons, can I tell the AI to be able to go and do something? And I think I'd love to get your take on this, because this is one thing that I've observed in people not adopting AI, which is it's kind of like how, the moment it doesn't spit out something that you expect, right, is they automatically discredit it, right? They're like, wow, like I'm not going to go. But I'm like, well, how is that any different than a human? Human makes mistakes as well, right? And so how do you challenge people that are in this camp, right? Maybe customers that you work with, or people even within the company, right? Around that, right? Because AI is not perfect. Like I've definitely given a prompt. Like I use it for, text to SQL, right? Like Redshift, Databricks, Snowflake, they all have it within their SQL editors. And it is pretty cool where you can look at all of your prior SQL queries, all of your metadata within your database, and be like, okay, here's our best attempt, but it's not perfect. You still need to understand. So how do you challenge people that are in that camp?
Yeah, it's so good. It's so funny. I was smiling because I got this exact question earlier today. So from another customer. And I think that there's a few things I would think about. Number one is, very practically, I think a lot of AI today is giving you a starting point,
Yep.
like a starting point on email, a starting point on a presentation script, a starting point on a SQL query, a starting point on an adoption campaign. Because it's not perfect by any means, but it's a starting point. So if you kind of like think about like products like Gainsight, where Staircase is this thing we bought, and it has like an automated score about like sentiment risk and stuff. It's not always right. It's right a lot, but it's not always right. But what we tell people is, look, it's about, did it cause you to be curious and dig in because you saw that issue, you know? And even if it what turns out to be a false positive, maybe it created a conversation with the customer. So that's number one, is it's about curiosity. Number two is we are learning, all of us, what works really well and what's okay. So for example, I think if you use ChatGPT or something like that, we all know like works great for most text related things,
Yep.
looking up information, that type of thing, right? It's okay at image generation.
Uh,
ChatGPT got better at image generation last week. Even then, it's kind of cringe sometimes, I mean,
even
like I was
math,
like,
math as
what's
well.
that
Like
math? It's just
even math,
okay
it's
at
not.
math.
Yeah, no, no, no.
But that's a good example where you just learn how to optimize it,
Yeah.
right? So you learn how to try things out. Like I'll give you a super nerdy example where somebody sent me, I don't know why, just gonna show you how nerdy my life is, but somebody sent me a fun math problem. And I was like, it was kind of like it wasn't a super complicated problem, but it was like one of these problems about like, imagine, there's a group of 50 people and what's the probability that, three of them have sequential birthdays, something like that, right? And I figured it out on paper, but I was like, let me see if ChatGPT can do this, right? So I typed it in. I was like, hey, here's the problem. It gave me the wrong answer. But then what I did was, because I've been thinking about this a little bit, I was like, okay, ChatGPT, take this problem, write 10 different prompts of variations of this problem, have
Hmm.
them compete against each other and give me the answer. And it gave me the right answer. It was really cool to watch because it got it wrong, like, half the time, and the other half it got it right. And then they kind of competed. So you learn how to optimize it. And
Yep.
then finally, remember that I heard an expression from a customer recently, which is the worst AI version of AI is the one you're using today, because tomorrow it's going to keep getting better, right?
Yep.
And so if you aren't getting frustrated and trying things and getting the wrong math answer or the wrong chart or whatever, the wrong SQL query, you're not trying hard enough. Just maybe a closing thought, like, I saw some stats recently on Waymo, which most people know, the Google self-driving car service, right? The accident rate is so much lower than humans. I mean, it's incredible how many lives it's going to save.
Yep. Yeah.
But yes, we're going to notice the one accident and a half. Absolutely. It's going to be in the news. It's going to be on Twitter. But we're not going to notice the, 10,000 people plus that die of car accidents per year through human drivers. So remember, this stuff just keeps getting better. And
Yep.
it's the future. You can either ignore it or lean into
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, I think tying it back to the concept of digital, I think one of the reasons why I think people are hesitant when it comes to the digital strategy is it is kind of like set it and forget it, right? Like whether it's email, whether it's creating something, and like you are not proofreading everything. And I think that's where people get scared. But I think this is where, how we say like 80-20 rule. You don't necessarily need to tackle everything at once. Crawl, walk, run
Yeah.
majority and focus on the areas in which AI within your digital strategy can get 80% of the way there, right? And that's good enough, right? And then you can always, to your point, tweak and move forward. But I feel like people are always enamored with perfection right off the bat. That I think I love the saying, "What don't let perfection be the enemy of progress." I think that's
Yeah,
so
exactly.
true in leveraging AI, especially in the digital motion or the digital strategy, is that they're so worried that they're going to mess up. And again, have safeguards in place. I think there's the ability to be able to say, hey, if this happens, don't do it, right? Like there's ability to play infuse process to make sure that you downplay the risk of something bad happening that you don't want it to do.
And it's totally right. And like just as an example for us, I mean, two things to think about. One is, if there's a spectrum of totally manual and totally automated, there's something in between, semi-automated, right? So one of the agents that we're working on adoption, they're going to create automated emails per customer, but they're going to let the CSM see them to edit and improve. Maybe one day people are totally comfortable with 100% autonomous, but there's a semi-autonomous, which is
Yeah.
kind of right there. We can do it. And then number two is, don't forget you're already doing stuff that's autonomous. It's just not very good. You're already marketing's already sending webinar emails to all your customers, whether they're interested or not. Product already put in that in-app pop-up every time you log in, that frankly, for a lot of your users is super annoying. And
Yeah,
if you can personalize those, you're doing better than you're already doing.
totally, totally. Love that. Love that. A few more questions here before we wrap up. I guess as digital transforms how customer success operates, right? What bold moves would you recommend to CS leaders that they should be making today to ensure that their organizations remain, I guess, resilient and weather the storm over the next 5 years?
Yeah, I think three things. Number one is go to your CFO with the business case now proactively, right? And be bold. Be willing to say, you know what? Look, CFO, I'm willing to not hire people next year incrementally, but I want some budget to like have an analyst to work on some AI stuff, or buy software like Matik or Gainsight or whatever, like consulting from somebody, and go proactively with the business case. Don't wait. That's number one. Number two is, I think, encourage your team to constantly be experimenting with AI. And that's simple. It's very simple. It's like encourage it and celebrate it, right? So, like, I'll give you an example. We have a CSM who inherited an account recently at Gainsight, and it's a huge account and it's at risk. Kind of the classic, do I need Gainsight? Can I do it in Salesforce? That's our main alternative. And the CSM just took over the account. We have this big presentation coming up, and I asked the CSM to do a history presentation of with this client's been with us 10 years. So how have we worked with them? The CSM's like, dude, I took this over a week ago. But what he did was he exported all the data from Gainsight's timeline, put it into ChatGPT, asked it to create a summary slide, and it was great. And so I then celebrated that on LinkedIn and on Slack to say, hey, great job. Great job with that work. And so that's number two. Encourage experimentation and celebrate it. And then number three is get the right resources in place on your team. You need some folks, maybe it's a data analyst like we talked about, maybe it's somebody who becomes your AI czar like we have on our team. So get those resources in place. But yeah, don't wait for this stuff. Go after it.
Awesome. Very cool. Love that. I guess lastly, as digital CS matures, right, and this becomes a focal point in the overarching strategy, what do you think, I guess actually put it in other words, do we need to rethink how we measure customer success? And if so, right, as part of that business case, like what are the metrics that leaders should be prioritizing in today's world, especially when it comes to this digital strategy?
Yeah, totally. I think that, customer success at the end of the day, it's pretty simple. It's a formula, which is how do I optimize my net retention and how to do it at the lowest cost possible, right?
Right.
That if you just had to summarize, that's the macro, right? But then if you looked at digital specifically, I think the question is, how can I get to the point where I can say affirmatively that this is driving higher efficiency, the cost side, and that this is creating a leading indicator for retention? It's impossible to say, like, I ran a
Yeah.
digital campaign, clients
Yeah.
didn't churn, right? That's not, but you can draw the thread in between. I ran digital campaign and it drove adoption of this feature, and that feature is correlated with retention. Let's use Gainsight as an example. It's a little bit meta, but our number one thing that correlates to our retention of our core Gainsight CS product is our digital engine. So I know this is it's extremely meta, right? Digital engine is called Journey Orchestrator. Some folks
Yeah.
watching know it. And if people use that, there's a significantly less likely they're going to churn. And so if we can drive digital campaigns to drive adoption of our digital feature, which is, again, this is ridiculously meta, but Matik has a feature, I'm sure, just like that, where there's a feature that if somebody's using it, they're more likely to retain.
Yeah.
People watching, you have some feature. And so, it's easy data science to go understand what those features are. And then go to your CFO, be like, look, we're running these digital campaigns. We're going to drive adoption of this feature. This feature is correlated with higher retention. We won't know for sure if the retention's improved because we have a 2-year contract cycle, whatever. But you know what? This is better than any other way we can look at the data. And I think you go to a CFO with a case like that, they're going to be quite impressed.
Awesome. Well, Nik, I know we're at time here. I just want to say thank you again. I know that you're a busy individual. I appreciate you sharing all your knowledge with the broader community here. And thank you for everyone again for attending the summit today. Again, if you are not able to attend all the sessions, don't worry. We will be sending out the recordings. And a huge thank you to participants like Nik and the other speakers who are taking the time out of their busy schedules to be here with us today. So enjoy the rest of the summit. Thank you, everyone.